Back, everybody. Kimberly is going to go ahead and get ready for her presentation right here. I hope you enjoyed again Gary's coffee keynote this morning. Maybe we're able to get another cup of coffee during the intermission, but I really hope you enjoyed this next section for our read and write relay. And on that note, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Kimberly Nix.
Good morning. I'm just attempting to move a few things around, put down my clipboard from the field day. I seriously enjoyed Jerry Brooks this morning. I'm a big fan of coffee myself. So just as a quick, to make sure everyone can hear me and see me, everything's good?
Yep, great to go. Thanks,
Awesome.
Kimberly.
Thank you. All right, so first thing I want to do is introduce myself and say thank you for joining us. My name is Kimberly Nix. I'm the Professional Development Manager here at Texthelp. I'm also a K-12 reading specialist, but I specialize in adolescent reading. I taught for 18 years, predominantly Title I middle school. So I spent a lot of time with 8th graders, and if I didn't have a good sense of humor before, I certainly do now. One of the things I thought about when I was thinking about what do we like about field day and why do kids just love field day? And I would think the main reason is because they are fully active and they're fully engaged. They're out there having a ball because they're active, they're a part of a team, they get to have choice. So I really think it's important that we look at how we can get our students active and engaged in our own classrooms so that we can get them back on track and running their own races. Now, if you're not familiar with Read and Write, I just want to give you a little bit of information. Read and Write is considered a literacy support software. It has a number of different tools that are going to help with the areas of reading, writing, speaking, listening, research skills, study skills, higher level thinking skills, vocabulary attainment, and so on. So there's lots of choice for our students as far as what tools are going to work best for them. And this is all going to help with our students having or finding their voice and gives them that choice. Now, one of the things that we know for sure is that reading is a complex thinking process. Our students are not innately knowing how to read. It is not something that you're born having a box of knowledge of. It is something that has to be taught. And that's not only learning how to read, but reading to learn as well. So all students need help, especially with the thinking process that comes with reading. One of the greatest things that we can do for our students is to help them with that by doing a think aloud. Now, I have found in my own experience with my students that most of my kids had never heard anybody processing or talking about what was going on in their heads. And in fact, most of the students I worked with were struggling readers. And so when I asked them, what makes a good reader? They would always say, well, they could just figure things out. It's like they have a box of answers in their heads. And my kids somehow were born without a box of answers. And it's because they never heard what a good reader does in their head while they're trying to figure things out. So it's really important that we as teachers model what's going on in our head. And this is not just for struggling readers. This is when we're looking at doing some critical thinking, when we're looking at more complex text and pulling information, doing some analysis or higher level thinking. We really want to model what that looks like for our kids. Now, one of the tools that is going to be really helpful for you to do that, regardless whether you're in a remote situation or you want to be able to have something that students can listen to over and over again, is that we have something called Voice Note. Voice Note is a feature that will allow you to record your own voice for up to 1 full minute, and it will insert it into your Google Doc or into your PDF as a comment. Now, this is going to give you a unique opportunity to be able to model that reading. So if you've got students who are beginners and need to hear what a fluent reader sounds like, you want to work on prosody or tone, this is a great way to do it because they're going to be able to hear your voice modeling it. Or if you're looking through and you're trying to figure things out, for students to be able to hear you thinking through, well, I don't know who that person is. Maybe I need to go back and check again. Or I didn't realize that this and this happened, so maybe I need to look for that as well. So voice notes is going to be an opportunity, as you can see on the screen, not only in a Google Doc, for you as teacher to make a voice note, but then students can do the exact same thing. Now, this is going to be a huge help. A lot of my students, their keyboarding skills were not as fast as they thought, and that was a point of frustration. I had other students with dyslexia, for instance, or students who English was not their first language. Being able to speak their thoughts is going to give them a voice to let you know what they're thinking, and also reward them for it. Now, if you favor PDFs, you can do this in PDFs just as easily. In the comments, we have a PDF comment button that you can click on. You have the ability to use a number of different tools, including the voice note. So again, you can model your thinking, and students would have the opportunity to do the same. Another tool that I think is really helpful is talk and type. So as students are starting to transition from that listening and speaking phase and starting to get more into reading and writing, the talk and type is going to be very helpful because this is going to turn the spoken word into text. In other words, it's speech to text. So again, students who struggle with keyboarding skills, students who may have a physical disability, or EL students, and any other student who have a challenge and would prefer to speak in order to type are really going to like this tool. And as you can see here, I've got a Google Doc again. One of the things I did a lot in my own classroom was I made sure that I put things into 2 and 3 column notes as often as possible. And the reason I did that was because it was so much easier for my students to be able to read a paragraph and then immediately record their thoughts, whether that be using the voice notes or if they want to use talk and type to be able to try to see the printed word that they're speaking. So this is going to give them a couple different options, and it's going to give them a place to return to their thoughts. Now, we know in order to hold on to what we're reading, in order to remember it and to retain it, we have to interact with it. So whether that's telling our connection what it reminds us of, or questions that we have that are not quite making sense, or predicting what we think is going to happen next, all of those things are going to really be helpful for students to be able to do if they have that second column. However, if you're using a PDF, you can just as easily, in the PDF comments, use the talk and type. And in fact, you can use the talk and type just as easily if you would like to, using our, say, typewriter tool, which will allow you to type on the page. So again, this is going to give students an opportunity to quickly put down what their thoughts are. That's going to help them to hold on or to retain that information. It's also going to give them, as well as you, an idea of what they understand and what they may not be understanding. In addition to that, we also have something called word prediction. Now, I find that a lot of students really like the word prediction simply because as their thoughts are coming, maybe that one word is not getting from their head to their fingertips. So this is going to provide up to 10 different suggested words that the student may be trying to type. And when they hover over each word, it is going to read the word aloud. Because a lot of times my students would know the word that they wanted, but they didn't recognize it when they saw it in print. So being able to hear and see the words in the list is going to give them a little bit of a boost, as well as some help with choice of word choice. So they're able to choose which one that they want and place it there on the document. So you can see here, I'm showing you again, you could model your thinking using voice notes, and students could model their thinking and use the prediction tool to help them. If you're using this in PDFs, you again have the ability within the comments to be able to use the word prediction to help students to be able to get their thoughts out with printed word. So you have some choices here as far as different tools that are going to be helpful. Now, one of the things that I found in my classroom is that kids want to hear what each other are thinking. How did you figure that out? How did you do that? What did that make you think that? Because they'll may say, you know, I really pictured in my head that the girl was wearing high heels and she had long red hair, and someone else will be like, yeah, that's what I pictured too. So giving students the opportunity to hear what each other is thinking is going to be extremely validating, and we want that to be the case for our kids. And this folds in really nicely to what we talk about when we talk about social emotional learning. We want to make sure that students have a voice. Just like Jerry said, we want to validate students that we are hearing them, that we're seeing them, that we understand that they have a voice, they have thoughts, and that they're important. And I can't think of any easier fit than reading, which is a complex thinking process, and asking students to tell us what they think. As Jerry said, that's an automatic in when they start telling you what their thoughts are, because you can respond to them, and vice versa. We're people, and that's going to help establish a really good relationship with kids very early on. We have a variety of tools to choose from, so that's going to help with student choice. And ultimately, that leads to what we call student autonomy, which is their ability to be independent learners. And that's ultimately what we want for students. So how can we do that? I want to show you a strategy, and I think this is important. Now, most of you have seen this. This has been, active reading has been around for a really long time, but I really want to, again, emphasize how important it is that our students are thinking about what they're reading. And so where I always started in my classroom is getting students to question. You know, what's one question you had? Now, again, I worked with 8th graders, and so they were happy to tell me that they understood everything and that they had no questions at all. So I would ask them simply, if you don't have any questions, if a student who is younger than you or new to this country, what kind of question do you think that they might have? And they were always happy to figure out what kinds of questions those kids would have. So questioning is an easy way to get started. Plus, we know the importance of questioning. We want to make sure that kids are thinking about what they want to know, because a student who wants to know nothing or is looking for nothing in a reading assignment usually finds it. We also want them to connect with their personal experiences, to visualize what's going on in the story or what's going on in the fiction that they're reading, or nonfiction that they're reading, the article that they're reading, so that they have a way to hold on to it. Important that they know that they can review, to predict, and I will tell you that my 8th graders were especially good at evaluating. So one of the resources that you'll be getting is the full list that I'm showing you here. Now, I was really excited for my kids to start doing these higher level thinking skills. And pretty quickly, I figured out, wait a minute, when I give my students the comprehension questions, this quickly kiboshes any kind of thinking skill. Now, we all know what happens. They read the questions and then they play this giant game of seek and find to try to find the answers. There's not a lot of thinking going on there. And quite frankly, it's not a lot of fun, and it's certainly not engaging for our students. So I wanted to have a way to be able to get my kids away from what I would call worksheets and into think sheets, where what they thought was important. In order to do this, one of the things that I wanted to do is to get them using these active reading skills. So this is an example of a template that I created. Now, this is a Google Doc, but hang with me if you're a PDF user, because I'm going to show you how you can use this with PDFs as well. What I have here is the template. You can see that the directions can be, of course, changed. So I found the article that I wanted to use, and this one happened to be on Thomas Edison. I chose to put one paragraph per box because, again, as I mentioned, in my classroom, we did a lot with 2 and 3 column notes, because struggling readers are often struggling writers. And a big blank page is a really scary place. So I found very quickly that columns and boxes were a safe place for kids to be able to place their ideas or their thoughts. They were more likely to attempt or try them. So I put some of the active reading skills you can see here in the center. Now, I would certainly not give all of these for my students to choose from, although I do want to hear what my student is thinking, so student voice, and I do want to give them some choice of the active reading skill that they're using. However, I would generally narrow this down to about 3 so that students don't have an overwhelming amount of choice. And it's also going to depend on the paragraph and its contents as to what reading skills you're going to want to keep. So that's something to keep in mind with this as well. I'm going to go ahead and go live with this so that you can see it much more easily. Oops. And there we go. So let me show you from the template. So this is the template where I can make changes to it. Here are the paragraphs that I placed. And I actually got this from a PDF. And like I said, I'll show you how you can do that in just a moment. So I could use this template over and over again by making copies. Before I give it to students, though, as I mentioned, I want to make sure that I'm giving them some choice, but not too much, and choices that make sense. So you can see here, this is an article about Thomas Edison. And I love this because this is going to give very clearly the student voice. So you can see here, the student read that Thomas Alva Edison was one of the greatest inventors of the 19th century. And by the way, the students are able to use our one of our 4 text-to-speech tools in order to be able to have this read out loud. And I want to say this too, because I hear this still from time to time. It is not cheating to allow a student to use a text-to-speech tool. I can read, however, there's plenty of times when I'm tired, when I have a volume of text to get through, when I need to keep a pace, when I'm unfamiliar with the vocabulary, that it is perfectly okay for you to have students use a text-to-speech to help them. In addition to that, I had an inclusion classroom for 14 years, and what I found was most of my students, of course, their independent reading skills were way below grade level. However, their comprehension skills were not. If they had something that read with them, they were able to read and comprehend on grade level. And that keeps students from being locked out of learning. So you can see where this student in particular read the first paragraph, saw Alva, and said, I thought Alva was a girl's name. Now, another tool that we have as part of Read and Write is our highlighter tools. Sorry about that. Apparently I didn't drink enough coffee with Jerry this morning. The highlighter tools can be used, and the students love this as well, to get students trained going back into the text and finding textual evidence, or in this case, showing you what they were talking about. I can also take this basic skill of just responding with their thoughts to the next level when I ask them to tell me what type of skill is that? What type of thinking are you doing? And they're able to color coordinate that information. So this student said they not only thought that Alva was a girl's name, but she wondered why that was his middle name. The next paragraph you can see here, Edison, this is talking more about his life. And you can see that the student read that his mother taught him at home. He was only schooled for 3 months. So they were able to connect with that and go, oh yeah, I know some kids who are homeschooled. And he also spent apparently all the money that he made from selling magazines and candy on books and equipment. So this student was like, I know a boy who sold candy in school and he got suspended. So there's a connection there. We love that. We want to hear that from our students. And they also evaluated that really to spend all of his money on books and experiments, he just really liked science. And then moving on from there, thinking of questions like, what is a telegraph? What's a stock ticker? So that students are thinking in terms of questioning as well. And then you can see here we've got some prediction. Now, I love this for kids because, first of all, this is active reading and this is engaging. It shows students that it's important what they think and that they have several different tools that they can use to get their thoughts down on that page, whether it's the voice note, whether it's using the talk and type, and using word prediction can help them get it down more accurately. So moving back, one of the things that I wanted to show here is that I think it's important to recognize that PDFs have their place, but a lot of times they don't fully provide an opportunity for students to really have what I call a think sheet. In other words, to be able to show their thinking. So I wanted to tell you, it's really super easy to do. If you have a PDF that is saved in your drive, all you have to do is open it with Google Docs, which will convert that PDF into a Google Doc. Now, the overall fear of doing this tends to be that you're scared of what's going to happen with the formatting. So I want to show you. I have a PDF here that I took this information from when I put it into our active reading skills template. Now, with the PDF, I was able to use the comment here. So I have my comment. In the commenting, I was also able to use my talk and type. So I was able to get this information down. And I can listen to it back, or if this is shared with someone else, they're certainly able to.
Wow, how did that happen? Why did the author just drop the bombshell and not tell anymore?
So I'm reading this and I'm thinking, wow, I mean, this guy saved a kid's life. And he almost totally hearing impaired. It was almost totally deaf at age 12. Why didn't he say what happened? I wanted to ask the author, like, how did that happen? So this is showing you that the student is actively engaged. Here's the PDF. You can also use the typewriter tool. So if you have a comment and you've got enough white space, you can add the typewriter tool. I was using also the freehand drawing to show what I was making a comment about. I have a voice note here so that I can use the voice note to tell you my thinking.
This is incredible considering that he was almost deaf at that point in time. He must have been really aware of what was going on around him to be able to save this boy's life.
So he basically pushed a child out of the way of being hit by a boxcar. So that's pretty great. Well, I'm thinking this is working for some of my students, but like I said, this isn't going to work for all of my kids. So what I did was I opened it up using the Google Docs. It created a Google Doc for me that looks like this. Now, I know that your first thought is, okay, it's completely messed up the formatting. And yes, it has. I wouldn't certainly share it with students like this, but look how easy it's going to be now for me to copy and paste the paragraphs that I want to use and put them right into my active reading template. So I can pop them right in here. I can even edit them if I wanted to, or change some of the words I know that may be difficult for students. I could even make it shorter. So this is going to give students, or teachers an opportunity to clarify or to really personalize a Google Doc where the student can interact. And then this is also going to be really helpful for your students because they're going to be able to go back and forth more easily next to the text itself. So you have a couple of different choices here, which I think are really important. You could still use the PDF, but again, we're talking about student voice and student choice. We also want to talk about teacher choice as well, and I think teacher choice is important. So you're going to get a copy of the template that's here so that you can use this over and over again. You're also going to get a copy of the example. So if you want to use this to show students what you're looking for, but this is a great way for you to be able to model your thinking, model your reading, and have students to do the same. So going back to my presentation, once we have those, as I said, the think sheets, we want to make sure that our students' voices are heard so that we're being able to hear them, whether that's actually through using the voice note or whether that's through being able to type their thoughts. And they have a variety of tools that can help them. They can even reread what their thoughts were and change them if they realize what they were thinking is not exactly what's on the page, or what's on the page is a bigger reflection of what they're thinking. We also know that giving students choice of different tools that can help them is going to lead to their autonomy or their ability to learn independently. So that's something that we want to make sure that our students have. I want to let you know that everything that I have presented here is going to be available afterwards. You've got the active reading sentence starters. You'll have active reading skill practice template and the example. Also, I want to call your attention to something that we created last year to really help those of you who are users of Read&Write for Google Chrome. And this is a compilation sheet that's going to give you all of the resources from all the different locations, whether it's our YouTube channel that has videos or it's other resources that we have on our website. This is going to give you a great listing so that you can get to those things that you're interested in quickly and easily. So I want to stop just to see, I know that there's some questions that have been coming in and people who've got some ideas and things. So I want to first of all thank you for joining me today. And I also want to thank you for all that you've done for kids. I want to reiterate also what Jerry said as far as being a sloth. I know that we are all exhausted from the last, I would have to say, a year and a half, if not almost 2 years. And we've got to give ourselves some time to bounce back. And that's not necessarily hitting the coffee, although I like coffee just as much as everyone else. So I think in showing your self-respect, showing your self-value, lifting your kids up and modeling, all of those things are going to help you to get to know your students, to validate that they are important, what they're thinking is important, and ultimately will help them with their reading and also their writing. So do we have any other questions, comments?
Hi, Kimberly. So thank you so much for such a wonderful presentation. That was so great. We did have just a couple of questions that came through. So the first one was asking if Read and Write is available within Microsoft Edge.
So Read&Write has its own toolbar in Microsoft Edge, and it's called Read&Write for Microsoft Edge. You can find it in the, I'm going to say the Microsoft Store for download. I have to check and make sure I didn't get back with you because I haven't used it in a while. So I have to look and see where you can get it. But yes, there is. So the answer to that question is yes.
Perfect. Thanks, Kimberly. And we can include that as well in the resources that we'll share out in the coming days following the webinar here. We did have a question as well. They were wondering if you could potentially go back to the slide that showed how to convert a Google Doc into a PDF. That was such a cool resource there.
Oh, I mean, I can go back to the slide, but I can actually show you how to do it.
Awesome. That'd be even better.
Okay, very good. So you can see here I have a PDF. Now it's important, the PDF, you want to make sure it's in your drive. So if you found it on the web, you want to download it first and then upload it into your drive. So you can see here I can right click on it and I am going to open it with, now I'm not going to open it with Read&Write for Google Chrome. If I do that, I will get the PDF toolbar, and that's fine if you want to work in that PDF. But if you want to change it to a Google Doc, all you have to do is click Google Docs. And when you do that, it's going to open up a brand new tab. Now, this particular article was, I think, 9 or 10 pages, so it's going to take a little bit more time for it to switch over. But now you can see it is going to always change the formatting, whether you change a PDF to a Word document or a Google Doc. But what I like about it is the fact that now I can pick up and place this information without retyping it. I could even choose to keep this picture if I want to and add the picture in if that's something, so students don't feel like, hey, I got a really boring think sheet. There's no pictures on it. So if you wanted to put some pictures in, you can do that because you can lift these as well. So it's really that simple. And like I said, one of the things that I found in doing this particular strategy was the kids loved it because they were being asked what they were thinking about. And it's great because you can start identifying with things. For instance, one of the things I found out in reading this article is that Thomas Edison went by Al. They called him Al growing up. I had no idea. So my first thought was, I can't even imagine Thomas Edison going by the name of Al. And so by being able to tell my thinking and what I was surprised at or what I connected it with, kids are going to naturally respond to that and feel comfortable in trying to do the same. So that's going to get you not only responses and getting you to know your kids, but it's also going to be helpful because kids are going to remember what they're thinking and they're going to be engaged. They like being able to do this. And they like hearing what each other said as well. I want to make sure that that's really an important point. They want to hear what other kids were thinking. They want to hear what other kids were connecting with. And we know that learning is innately a social activity. So as often as we can find out what kids are thinking and let them share, we definitely want to do that. Sorry, went off on a tangent.
No, that was perfect. Thanks, Kimberly. This was a great question that came in from one of our attendees. Her name is Annie. She was wondering, and I think this is great. And you have the perfect like document open right now. So this is pertaining to our highlighters feature. So she had basically mentioned that the potentially use of the same colors within a document to identify different reading or thinking strategies. Just asking if that was possible, but I think that that is a great study tool for students to use. So would you mind just kind of giving a little bit more information on how exactly those highlight features could be used?
Absolutely. I would say that the highlighters are probably one of the most versatile and certainly one of the most helpful for higher level thinking skills. So when you think about the fact that you're going to compare, contrast, cause and effect, problem solution, or even something simpler down to words that start with a particular letter or a particular blend or have a word family or have the same word family. This is going to help students to connect the color with something in particular. So one of the things that I did, and I will tell you that this is true for most kids, most of our kids have never had any direct instruction in using highlighters. So if you don't explain that the reason we are giving 4 different colors is so that you can color code information. In other words, if you wanted to, or if I wanted to, I could go through this article and have my students highlight all the words that start with the letter E in yellow. And then every time I see a word in yellow, what am I going to know about that word? It starts with the letter E. They get this very quickly. However, if you don't show them that the reason that we have those colors is for that color coding or identifying certain types of information, they often think you just handed them a box of crayons. One of my favorite stories, I was working in a high school and I was watching a student. She highlighted for a while in yellow and then she started highlighting in pink. So of course, being a good observer, I walked over and said, so I see you've highlighted some information here in yellow. Can you tell me about it? She said, yeah, the first question is asking me to find textual evidence of what the author's purpose is. So I've highlighted some information here that's going to help me. And I was like blown away. I was so excited. I was like, booyah! I said, that's exactly what you should be doing. I said, so I see you've highlighted some information here in pink. Is that going to help you with question 2? And she looked at me dead in the face and went, no, I saw pink was available and it's my favorite color. I went, wait, what? She said, yeah. I said, so the information in pink, what is that for? She goes, oh, it's going to help me with the first question also. So we really do want to make sure that students understand that color coding is important so that we're using colors for a purpose. So in this particular document, since you pointed this out, I asked the student to highlight what their thought was. Tell me what kind of thought it was or what type of active reading skill it was. So that this is just letting me know that these two things are connected. But like I said, you can do this with parts of speech. You can do this with finding the information you need in a word problem to set that word problem up. If you're doing comparing and contrasting, highlighting all of the information about one item in one color and all the information about another item in another color, remembering that you can collect the highlighted information onto a brand new Google document, which is going to make it a lot easier for the student to do a point-by-point comparison or see what information they have collected on a particular topic if that's what they're associating it with. Is that helping to answer the question?
That was great. Thanks so much, Kimberly.